मैम मैंने लाइव कर दिया है, आप स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं।
Good evening, very good evening to all the viewers, and a special thank you to the Visamo Parivar and the CaderX group for inviting me for this live session today. It is my pleasure to talk on this platform, more so because I have spent some fundamental years of my career with Visamo. more than 15 years back, I was a young college student and I needed to do something. And that's when I joined Visamo as a volunteer. And I still have very warm memories of the place, of the institution. Um, and after that, I've had the privilege to welcome a lot of Visamo students to Red Brick School, which I run. And I have just been amazed with the sincerity and the potential of all the Visamo students. So my deepest gratitude and my congratulations to all the students and the staff members of Visamo for making such a difference in the world. Today, incidentally, is also the World Population Day, and India being one of the most populous countries in the world, I thought I must mention it. Um, Also, I believe that, you know, in a country as large and as diverse as India, the social infrastructure of the country becomes very important. So, healthcare, education, these are some of the sectors which are so crucial to ensure an equitable and a sustainable future for our nation. This brings me to our topic for today. I would like to show a few slides along with my talk so that the audience can follow it. My talk is a little more geared towards educators because I am an educator and I work closely with educators, but I hope all kinds of stakeholders, even parents or students, can get something out of it. So I will just give me a moment so that I can share the slides. So my topic for today, the topic I chose was reimagining education, something positive, how the COVID-19 disruption can accelerate progressive pedagogy. When I was thinking about the topic, the first thing that came to my mind was COVID-19, obviously. And you know, this unprecedented and disruptive nature of COVID-19 has really pushed all the schools into an existential crisis. There are some fundamental questions that schools are asking themselves, they are reflecting, and they are thinking like, are schools really necessary? What role do schools play when technology can enable learning, which is what we are seeing all around? Do students need to spend so many hours in the school when they can have a more balanced life and they can even learn from home? Also, schools are, I think, asking themselves, how have we stayed relevant with the changing times? Have we been able to develop systems and processes so that even during such disruptions, there can be continuity in education? Schools are ultimately thinking about the broader question, why do we exist? What is our core mission? Why do we exist? And how do we sustain ourselves even in such an unprecedented situation? It is said that when there is a crisis, heroes emerge. And I have really been amazed to see the rise of educators all around me, the teachers, the academic leaders, school managements, everyone has been working extremely hard, not just in India, but I think across the globe from what I see on the internet, to make sure that schools deliver on their core mission, which is to ensure continuity of learning for children and to not just focus on learning, but make sure that children are healthy and children are safe even when they are at home. And I think this kind of a rise of educators is possible only in this profession because most educators are here mainly for two reasons. Because they are very passionate about teaching young children, and also because they are highly committed to make an impact on children's lives and their futures. And from this passion and from this commitment comes this intention and this strong will to face this challenge and to do the best that we can in this situation. There are challenges, no doubt. There was a time of panic, there was a time of confusion in education, but now I see positivity, now I see clarity, and now I see a more confidence coming into schools and educators as a whole, that we can continue with our mission even in the face of COVID-19. I think this difficult time will actually be a boon in the long run. I think this time has helped us introspect so much that as schools and as educationists, this introspection will really help us to identify our flaws, to identify opportunities, and to do course correction in the way we educate our children. Children have been in a daily rut. You know, they come to school, they get ready, they come to school, they study, they play, they go home, they give exams, and then they move to the next grade. But I think this disruption is really getting us to re-examine this daily rut and to really look at education from a more critical lens than something that goes on every day and is taken for granted. So through this presentation, I want to talk about a world of opportunities which I think exist because of COVID and because of remote learning. I think how schools have adapted is largely through remote learning. All schools have developed their own models, but in many ways they are similar. Children are attending virtual classes over video conferencing platforms, or teachers are sending videos. Children are working on independent study tasks. And all of this is pushing everyone out of their comfort zones, whether it is the students, the teachers, the parents. And I believe that when we are pushed out of our comfort zones, we grow. And therefore, I feel that there is a tremendous world of opportunities that has opened up because we have had to adopt remote learning, because children are learning from home. And today my talk is going to talk about 6 such opportunities that I feel from my experience are presented in the remote learning context. And I hope that we utilize them and we continue with these opportunities even when face-to-face teaching resumes. So the first opportunity that I want to talk about is the most obvious one, of course, technology. You know, for the longest time, technology has advanced so much. The kind of devices, the kind of tools that are available to enable experiences and learning have really increased. At the same time, educationists like me have been very cautious about adopting technology in education. And I think we've had some right reasons to be cautious. 2 main reasons that I think I would be cautious about are, you know, learning is all about relationships. Learning is all about experience. And I always have had my doubts about technology's value in promoting experiential learning and, you know, social learning. I also always have wondered about the impacts that technology can have on children's mental health, children's physical health. And therefore, I think a lot of us educationists have rightly been cautious about not adopting it very enthusiastically. But now that we are forced to adopt technology, I see immense benefits. I see immense opportunities. Some of the benefits and opportunities that I feel can continue in a face-to-face teaching context is we can use technology even when children are not present in the school. So there can be children who are not in school because they are unwell, maybe they are traveling, maybe they are pursuing other talents like sports. And in all these circumstances, can the school imagine a blended model where children can also learn from home and don't need to be present in the school all the time if they have the right reasons? I think technology can also enable us to reach out to learners of different abilities. So students who need more interventions, who need to go slower, students who can go faster, all of them, teachers can reach out beyond regular classrooms through technology. More importantly, it teaches technological skills to children, which is important in today's world. It does present some good creative engagement tools. A lot of schools do field visits, get visiting experts. I think through technology, our scope of exposing children to the world around just increases manifold. We can take them to places virtually where they've never been. And therefore, all in all, I think it is time we pay attention to technology and imagine newer ways of incorporating it in even a face-to-face teaching context without the negative impacts, by safeguarding our children through wise decisions and important guidelines around technology. The second opportunity that I want to talk about is student engagement. I think student engagement is the most important ingredient in the recipe of learning. Unfortunately, in a face-to-face teaching context, we don't think about it so much. Students come to school and there is an attendance taken, there is a roll call taken in the morning. And if the student is physically present, it is assumed that the student has been present in all the classes and all the learning experiences. However, we all know, as educators, we know that our children are not mentally present all the time. They are not emotionally present all the time. And what that means is that if we cannot just trap students in a physical space, in a classroom, and be satisfied that we have taught children. We would have really taught children when we would have had their participation. We would have had their full engagement into the learning process. So why do I think remote learning offers this opportunity? Mainly because this is very difficult in remote learning. I have heard teachers saying that, because children are not there in my classroom, I'm finding it too difficult to connect with them. I'm finding it so difficult to even gauge whether a child is engaged or not engaged. A child sitting at home in front of his or her computer can choose to turn off his video, can choose to not do assignments, may have a lot of distractions the teacher may not even be aware about that are going on. So I think remote learning has made this extremely difficult, but teachers have realized that unless students are not engaged, unless they're not responding to the remote learning experiences, learning cannot move on. And therefore, I think that when face-to-face teaching resumes, we must remember this, that just by getting children physically present in our classrooms, they are not fully present. And therefore, I feel teachers can really reflect and schools can really reflect that what are the different ways in which we can plan for and promote student engagement, and not just of the bright students, not just of the students who participate in those discussions, but also of students who are perhaps not very participative. All of them matter. And how do we make student engagement matter in a regular classroom too? So this brings me to my next opportunity, which is, I feel, one of the best ways to promote student engagement, which is real life learning. I think one of the biggest benefit again of remote learning is the realization of everyone in education that our syllabus is too vast. We cannot teach children everything through remote learning. The boards have cut down syllabuses. Teachers, even before that, teachers have started prioritizing content. What is critical to teach? What is not critical to teach? And let me focus on the critical right now. This means that even once we go back to face-to-face teaching, we really need to have a deep, hard look at our content, and we need to prioritize what is critical, essential, and desirable. And we need to have different approaches to address that content. Because if we really want children to develop understanding, if we really want children to develop their skills, they need to be able to apply what they are learning. And if our classes are packed with content, every class there is a different topic, how are children going to get opportunities to apply what they are learning? So I say it's always better to go deeper than wider. It's better to cover something in depth, the content in depth, rather than expecting children to memorize and remember everything and a lot of content. The other thing about remote learning is that, when children are sitting at homes, teachers are becoming creative about how can the home environment and the home context become a tool for learning, become a resource for learning. So math teachers are getting children to measure utensils, to do cooking in the kitchen. Language teachers are asking children to conduct interviews of people around them, their family, and there are so many examples where now finally teachers are also getting so many new ideas that how with minimum resources, how can children learn? And experiential learning, how can it be contextualized in the personal context of the child, in the real life of the child? And I think this is also very important to remember when children come back to school. They are in that classroom, but the blackboard or the smartboard is not the only way to learn. How are we going to continue to provide children creative experiences? And they need to be very simple. It is said that math is all around us, language is all around us, science is all around us. So in a school premise, how can we break the boundaries of a classroom and get children to experience learning in a very real life situation? And if we do all of this, I think we will come to the second part of this opportunity, which is developing learner responsibility. Again, I think in most classrooms where, which are tightly controlled by the teachers, and in most homes where, parents are the decision makers for children, I think remote learning is forcing us adults to trust children, to give them more choices, to give them more freedom, and to trust them to do their work. Because the teacher is not going to be around all the time. The parent has a lot of other things to look into, and the parent can't be with the child all the time. And therefore, I think that if we use experiential learning, if we empower children in even a face-to-face teaching context, we give them more choices, more voice about how they want to learn things. I think students will become extremely responsible for their own learning. It's unfortunate that what happens right now is we have to use punishments and rewards to force children into learning. But wouldn't it be just amazing if we didn't have to use punishments and rewards? It would be so amazing if children themselves would be so excited to learn. And I think real life learning provides them a purpose. I think right now, most children don't understand the purpose behind what they are learning. So if we can help children understand the purpose through real life experiences, I'm sure they will become more responsible for their own learning. The fourth opportunity that I want to talk about is personalizing learning. I think there are, the current system of education there are a lot of thinkers who have talked about how it is modeled on the factory system of industrialization, which simply means that, we have these batches of children, and all the batches of children are clubbed by the same age groups, not by abilities. And therefore, what happens is in one classroom, a teacher has learners of such different abilities, not just 2 levels or 3 levels. I would say there are 10 levels of abilities in a classroom. And I've often seen that a lot of teachers feel frustrated because then they are unable to reach out to every learner in their classroom. So I think technology has actually helped us or can help us, remote learning can help us break these molds of the factory system of education and the one size fits all approach to education. I think in some of the ways, I can give you examples of how many schools are doing it. Is now a class of 30 students is being grouped into two groups for virtual classes, and so automatically the groups become smaller. In each of the smaller groups, children are grouped sometimes by abilities, so a teacher can vary her instructions, her explanations according to the children's abilities. In the independent study tasks that children are given during remote learning, the teachers are sensitive about this fact, and they are also sometimes giving differentiated tasks, of which means of different complexities to different learners. More importantly, I think remote learning, because a lot of it is independent study, a lot of it is where children watch pre-recorded videos or videos of sessions already conducted before. I think children are finally being able to learn, or will be able to learn at their own pace. Learners who need more time can go a little slower, can watch videos again, can clarify with the teacher during office hours or other times. Learners who can go faster can be challenged faster and they can move ahead. So I think remote learning all in all provides immense opportunities for teachers to try differentiated instruction, because the whole traditional mold of a classroom, physical classroom of factor system is being broken. So I truly hope that when we resume face-to-face teaching, teachers utilize this experience, and during remote learning is a great way to professionally develop oneself for differentiating instruction. And I hope that during face-to-face teaching, teachers continue to try. It's not going to be perfect, but at least to try to personalize learning for as many learners and in whatever ways they can. The next opportunity that I want to talk about is the heart and mind connection, and the value of the emotions and the socio-emotional environment in learning. If you most of us are aware of various religions. Many of us have read about spirituality. If you look at spirituality and world religions, one thing is extremely clear, that emotions play a very important role in human life. Only a calm and a balanced mind can actually be a productive mind. A lot of the scientific research from neuroscience, from evolutionary science, have also confirmed this. When we look at brain research, it is becoming extremely clearer that the brain has different parts: amygdala for emotions, prefrontal cortex for logical thinking in humans, and the most primitive part, the amygdala, the emotional part of the brain, is not always in our control. And how it impacts our thoughts, how it impacts our experiences. Similarly, evolutionary research is very clearly bringing out how during the olden times of hunter-gatherers, because humans had to keep themselves safe and secure, we have instincts, we have impulses, again the role of amygdala, and humans have been blessed with the ability of fight or flight response, which keeps us safe and secure. What all of this actually means, which educational research is also talking about, synthesizing and talking about, is that we cannot separate emotions and learning. We cannot separate the heart and the mind. And unfortunately, in most of our classrooms, we focus so much on the mind and not on the heart. So how remote learning is creating this opportunity? Again, I feel it's an opportunity because students are not there physically. Teachers are realizing that unless we have a connection, that physical connection, which is nothing but actually an emotional connection, how can we make children learn? And children also need connections with each other, not just with their teacher. So a lot of teachers are trying different things. In our school, we've tried something called a community building time, where the whole class meets virtually to bond, to play games. So what this means is that heart and mind connection also needs a lot of thought, also needs a lot of focus and planning. So when we resume face-to-face teaching, I think the first priority that all of us as educators and teachers should keep in mind is the socio-emotional environment of the classroom and the school. Is the child feeling not just physically safe, but also psychologically safe, also intellectually safe to learn in that classroom? Because just like engagement of the mind, the engagement of the heart is also very important in the whole process of learning. This brings me to my last opportunity, which is parents. Parents has a very important stakeholders and partners in the learning process. So over the years, I don't know why, but what has happened is teachers and parents or schools and homes have almost become like two different camps in a child's life. And a child experiences contradictory messages, contradictory approaches from both these camps. Child experiences non-constructive communication between these two stakeholders, and all of this is impacting the educational experience and the holistic development of children. But remote learning has wonderfully brought these two camps together. I think finally we are in a situation where parents and teachers have become one team. And because parents have realized that to educate children from home is very, very difficult, and they are very appreciative of the efforts that teachers are making. At the same time, I have been amazed to see parents really support teachers, because teachers also make mistakes, and remote learning is new for everyone. But I have seen fantastic support from the parent community for teachers to try this new method. At least once we started it at our own school. So I do believe that both stakeholders are taking their own steps. The teachers and the schools are doing surveys of parents, talking to them, becoming more sensitive to their needs, communicating more frequently with them. So again, I think from the teachers and from the schools end, there is more proactiveness to involve parents in the process, because right now parents have also become para teachers at home. So when we come to a face-to-face teaching context, I hope that we continue this partnership. And I hope that we continue to be a team in children's lives, because parents and teachers together as a team can have a much bigger impact than two different stakeholders in a child's life. So I presented a very optimistic picture about education in context to remote learning. I don't want to deny the challenges. I think all of us are experiencing it. All of us are aware of it. There are immense challenges to continue remote learning. So I don't think it is a long-term sustainable model. There are challenges linked to accessibility. Do all children have access to devices, to connectivity? There are challenges related to screen time. How is it going to impact children and their physical, mental, and emotional health? Parents are facing a lot of challenges when they also have their own professions and work to go to. Teachers are facing challenges where they have to completely reimagine a new way of teaching while balancing their own personal lives and their own children. And of course, children are missing out on socialization. Remote learning helps a little through virtual platforms, but the socialization that children experience in a face-to-face school cannot be compared and cannot be matched up with a virtual class platform. So yes, I don't believe that this is a long-term model, but I do believe that remote learning is throwing up a lot of these opportunities our way. And if we choose to grab them, and if we choose to them as a catalyst for our growth in the education fraternity, then it will really give long-term benefits and long-term return on our education system. To summarize the presentation, if we make this shift, if we leverage these 6 and even more opportunities that exist due to remote learning right now, then in the post-COVID schooling scenario, when children come back, I feel we will have an education that is more relevant to the 21st century because of the focus of technology, because it focuses on developing life skills of children and real life learning. We will have we will be able to mold happier, more engaged, more responsible and holistic learners. And more importantly, we will be able to create a team of adults with a well-coordinated approach towards ensuring a child's well-being. Thank you. That was my short presentation on how I feel COVID-19 can help us move and learn more about progressive pedagogy. I have listed a few thinkers and a few books that you can read. There are many, many thinkers whose ideas will connect to what I talked today, but these 4 thinkers have really impacted my way of thinking. The books listed under their name are just one title. All of them have written many, many books which are widely available. So I really propose that educators and even parents pick up some of these books or even read their articles because they've just done some fantastic research and work in education. Thank you.